welcome back to another episode of Decide to Heal. I am your host, Alejandra Crisafulli, award-winning master life coach, and I am with a very special couple here. They are one of the clients that I've had the privilege to work with in the 180 Method couples coaching. And you guys, Gina and Gary have been just through an incredible journey, not only as couples, but as an individual too. And you both have such a great story of where you were to where you are now. And I'm just honored and privileged to have been a part of that journey and to have people get to hear about it, because marriage is hard, y'all. Would you agree?
Yes.
It is challenging. So it's great when we can, one, be able to recognize like, hey, we've got some challenges and we need to work on these things and actually work on them. And the work never ends. It's not like it's one and done kind of thing. You hear me talk about healing, and the ing part means you keep up leveling and you keep growing. There's another level, there's another layer. And that's what we want, because every time you heal a new layer, you get closer to God and hence get closer to the person that you're sharing your life with. So, is there anything that either of you would like to start with just sharing about yourselves?
Well, I have a lot of practice with marriage. So this is my fourth marriage. I was married early on, just briefly. And then I had two marriages where I had children. Those did not work out. And I think it's what makes the 180 so great. And if I would have had it like back then, like you just keep repeating the same cycle. And so, seeing that now, but I also think, I wouldn't have my kids and I wouldn't trade my kids and now my grandbabies, for anything. So yeah, I think it's, and we've been, this year will be 20 years that we've been married. And so,
wow. Okay. Yeah. Nice.
So,
that's awesome, you guys.
So, yeah, so it's been a long, road to here, but yeah.
Awesome. Gary, how about you? What would you want to share?
Well, I mean, I totally agree with you. Marriage is hard, and then when you have a blended family, it's even harder.
Oh, yeah. So true.
Have exes involved with it and different kids and what have you. But no, I think anybody that has ever had to go through this or going through this needs something like this to have in their back pocket for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because if you think about it, like you're bringing two individuals with our own baggage, so to speak, and you're bringing them together to try and create a cohesive, life that combines together. And when there's a lot of baggage, trying to combine baggage upon it becomes challenging. One of the things that I loved about your story and was so eager to work with both of you is because, Gina, you mentioned this is your fourth marriage, and Gary, this is your second, right?
Yes.
Is that you both had done therapy. And can we talk a little bit about how that experience in therapy was for you? Because you guys, when we came to when we've had like an initial conversation, because, we have an intro call, so to speak, and talk about what the coaching's going to look like and if we're a good match and all of that. And I remember, Gary, you were kind of like, I'm not doing anything like this.
Ever again. I mean.
Ever again, yeah. Because the therapy thing did not work out well, right?
No, because... And I don't know if it's just Gina and I's personality or whatever. We went to counseling trying to fix the other person instead of working on ourselves. And I think that's where the 180 method is. you get to actually look at yourself and
So
look,
true.
get to look at your baggage more or less instead of examine somebody else's.
Yeah, like it's you. Yeah, right. Pointing at the other person. That's actually a great distinction. Like, let's go to therapy to fix you, the other person, versus no, with coaching, it's like, no, it's turning the mirror around and taking ownership of your own baggage, so to speak.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we had been through a lot of counselors, like
Mm-hmm.
especially early on. We'd gone through a lot of individual, and then we tried to do some couples, and that just did not work out. And so we went for a long time without it. And I really wanted to do something. And this was right before I had met you. We had a therapist, and I really think all three of us just hated it. It was just terrible. And I remember she said to me one time, "Well, you just have to deal with it." And those were her exact words, like, "You just have to deal with it." And I was like, "Well, I don't want to."
Yeah.
And, then I'd heard you speak before,
Yeah.
like a year prior to that. And then I heard you speak again. And I remember like finding you afterwards, and I'm like, "I'm really interested." And you're like, "Well, what does that mean?" So at that point, I joined a group.
Yeah.
And that was really, really, really good. In one of our one-on-one calls, you had mentioned that you did couples counseling, because I had shared our struggles
Sure. Yeah.
and things. And so I had told him when we basically quit our last coaching or last counseling, I said, "I'm not going to ask you to do anything again. I'm not going to ask you to listen to a podcast, read a book, go to any other therapy. What it is what it is. We're just, know." And so then after we had talked, I'm like, "Hey," like, kind of completely forgetting that, like, Alejandro does couples coaching. And I guess like seeing the change in me through the group coaching, he was at least interested in having that conversation.
Yeah. Do you remember that, Gary, that time period?
I do.
Yeah. What
But
was
Gina's right. I mean, there was a point in time, please don't ever say the word counselor to me again. I mean,
yeah, and same. Like, it was terrible.
Yeah. Like that. And that we're not, like, I'm sure there's we're not saying there's terrible counseling is horrible and don't do it, but it's just that there's a time period where it's like, this is not working.
There was never any tools given to us,
Mm.
And as we was talking here, I was thinking, we went to counseling, and I wanted to pick out all of Gina's baggage. She wanted to pick out my baggage instead of being able to put tools in a toolbox that we could actually use.
Yeah,
so
exactly. And that does create healing rather than continuing to just deal with each other and yourself in the relationship, which that just breaks my heart that Gina, like, that happens. And who knows how often that actually happens, where it's like, well, you just got to deal with it. We're saying marriage is hard. Like, I started off by saying that. There is beauty in the hard. Like, I think about Eric and I, which y'all know is my husband. And I mean, we have some major differences. He's not a believer. I am like all for Jesus. And like, I continue to fall in love with Jesus, like, more and more. And I'm all about what I'm seeing in my spiritual growth. And he doesn't believe at all. Like, that's a big difference. We have very different, political views, which we're not going to get into or talk about. But there's these major differences. However, through the hardness of things, and through healing, there's just this deeper connection that can happen and spiritual growth that is occurring. For Eric, it's something different than it is for me, but that hardness breathes life into a marriage. So can we talk about, like, what was it that you guys were going through that was really challenging? Because sometimes, and you don't have to share like total specifics of things, but I think sometimes it's hard to grasp when we're talking about it versus, actually sharing what was happening.
Well, if I may, I think we was at best roommates and not good roommates at that.
Yeah. That's a great description. Gina, I remember you kind of saying that too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So say more about that, the roommates and at best.
Well, I mean, Gina lived her life and I was living my life, and neither one of them went side by side. We didn't do anything together. And
Yeah. And what was that causing between the two of you?
more separation, more wall, more everything,
Gina, how about for you?
Well, I would say that I think a lot of our differences were over kids, and how we saw raising kids, and those struggles. We have a business that we do together, and there's just a lot of places for conflict, and again, no tools on how to resolve that.
Yeah. What were some of the biggest, I'm going to ask, do you remember, which I know you remember, but do you remember, Gina, what were the feelings you were having? There was common, feelings that you were having that you felt like Gary wasn't giving you, kind of thing. Do you know what I'm talking about? Go back to relate to self and those kinds of things. The not being heard
not being seen, just, feeling very alone. And I think for me, the less I felt heard, the louder I would get.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Will you say that again? Because that's important.
Yeah, no, truly. The less I felt heard, I just would get louder.
Yeah.
And I can talk a lot, and I can talk over and, around, and I like words, so I like to use a lot of them, and I just,
Yeah. And Gary, how did that work out for you?
Well, I mean, I heard it the other day, an empty trash can makes the most noise. So
that's so true. When you throw something in it.
Yeah, right? I mean, an empty trash can makes the most noise.
Okay.
Huh. Not quite sure how to take that.
Okay. No, but it was just, I mean, the only thing that Gina and I shared in common was us feeling the same way.
Yeah.
So
meaning you weren't feeling heard either.
Exactly.
Yeah. This is one of the things I find so fascinating with couples. Mm-hmm. The thing that you are struggling the most with is the thing that the other person is struggling the most with as well. And it's interesting because you would think that, you would hear from a lot of women, well, you don't hear me, or you don't understand, or I keep telling you, and men wouldn't do that. You would think that they're not thinking that. No, they are. They feel the same way. It's really fascinating. Whatever it is that you are struggling with, the other person is struggling with too. Yeah.
Right. I think one of the biggest things is people, and I think this was very true for both of us. If you're not agreeing with me, you're not listening to me.
Yes. Exactly. And how much we just need to be agreed with, because that agreement means what? What would the agreement have meant?
Validation, right? It's just validating ourselves and our beliefs. And yeah, it's just validation.
Yeah, validation. I'm loved. Oh, you love me because you agree with me and you validate me, and whew, now I'm safe.
Yes.
Comes back to all that. Yeah. So, Gary, what I have really enjoyed watching through your healing journey is how you have turned the mirror around on yourself. What are some of the things that you learned about yourself through the 180 that has really helped in your
Well,
marriage?
in our marriage, well, I think any self improvement that you can do will help your marriage for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the golden key and the one movie Inside Out that you wanted us to watch.
Oh, that's
You know,
right.
the little things, you know, the core beliefs and stuff that you have buried so far down and deep that they are just who you are. They're knitted into your being and they don't
Yeah.
have to be.
Yeah. That's so true. And like, what was what's one thing that you uncovered about yourself that was really impacting your marriage?
The
I can
way that
think.
I was raised
Uh-huh.
wasn't the right way.
Was it the right way or it wasn't the
It's
right way?
not the right
Oh,
way.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, becoming grandparents, I mean, I'm so in love with our little grandsons and stuff. It's great. And here in the next couple of weeks, we're going to have a little granddaughter. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just, I look so forward to coming home if they happen to be here. And yesterday I got home because Gina watches Cooper and I got a bonus because Foster was here too. So it was awesome. But yeah, I wished I would have known back then what I know now and how impressionable little minds are and what
Yeah.
an influence I could have been.
Right. So that not being raised right, so to speak, there's one thing that we uncovered through your childhood that was really impactful. Do you remember what that was?
Well, if you're talking about did I do it right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I struggled with that my whole life. And if you look back on that, it has impacted anything that I've ever done
Yeah.
my whole life.
Yeah. Yeah. That question of, did I do it right? Am I right? Am I doing this right? And gosh, I just remember how much that was getting in the way in your marriage and even in our conversation, like our coaching calls.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
It was like, am I doing it right? And it was something that had been driving you and causing this almost like disconnect between the two of you. Because listen, and I'm going to speak to the men here for a moment. If you don't feel like you're doing something right, then one of two things happens. You're going to distance yourself from your wife because it's like, well, I can't do anything right for her, so I'm just going to do my own thing.
Right.
Or you're going to fight and you're going to put up this battle of like, well, let me show her how right I am about things. Either way causes such conflict and drama within the relationship. And it really just comes back down to this fundamental misperception of I'm wrong. And that's built throughout life of something happens in childhood that tells you you've done something wrong. You haven't done it right. And hence you're bad or this other like attached meaning to it. And you got to protect yourself at all costs to feel that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Gina, how about for you? What was something for you that you knew was kind of getting in the way? Is there something specific for you
Well,
you can remember?
I have to be right.
Yeah.
So that's, can be problematic. Like,
Well, yeah.
like I really early on, years before I'd ever met Gary, I had gone to a pastor and he said, "You're a right fighter." Right. And he said, but it makes sense the way you were raised. I had a dad was kind of a perfectionist, very driven. Like you have to, and I have an older sister that kind of met those criteria in my eyes. Like she was always, the perfect kid. And so I went through periods of either being very rebellious or, trying to do everything right. And so, but if I think I'm right, and I typically think I'm right, I'm gonna, I'm gonna fight for it. And like I was saying, I just,
Yeah.
I'm a fighter. So, and I
Yeah.
think over time I became like more like, because we did that so much, like around my kids, that
Yeah.
I got to the point where then I would just retreat and like I couldn't then, go the opposite. And neither one is helpful.
No, neither one works out well or creates a healthy marriage or environment for the kids either. Yeah.
I did
So,
want to say something about
yeah.
that the movie and like the core beliefs because
Yes.
and the core memories because I thought that was so important. I had seen that movie, a million years ago with my kids, but going back and thinking like, what is a core memory for one person may not be for another.
Yeah.
And that was something we always, had these big disagreements on, like somebody didn't remember something that was said or done and you're remembering like it was yesterday. And I
Right.
thought of like, okay, this was really important to me, I do remember this. And being able to validate that for yourself and not needing the other person to do that was really eye-opening.
Yeah. That's so true. Thank you for
Mhm.
sharing that. Cause yeah, it's not everyone is going to remember it the same way. We all have our own glasses, so to speak. Like if Gary, you asked Gina to put on your glasses so she could see what you see, you wouldn't be able to see, or vice versa, because they're not your glasses. All right. So let's talk about like where you guys are at now. Like what is life like, or what? It's been a while since you finished your coaching. I want to say over a year now, right?
Yeah, I think it's been, gosh, I can't even, yeah, I think it's been
Yeah.
about a year. I think
Yeah.
one of the biggest, like, eye-opening moments for me during coaching,
Yeah.
the conversation about expectations.
Yes.
And that was like this, I think the single most healing thing for me was that, and it's a twofold thing, like, you just can't have expectations of another person. Like you can, but it's not going to do you any good. It's going to lead to frustration or, all kinds of things. And on the flip side, nobody can really have expectations of you. Like, you're in charge, like I'm in charge of me, he's in charge of him. And like letting go of the need, because in a controlling behavior, right? Letting go of that need to control somebody or their reactions or whatever, and just letting go of those expectations, but then also not taking on somebody else's expectations. That's been really, really great.
How have you been able to release those expectations?
I think, and it takes time and it takes practice,
Yeah.
right? And it's just catching yourself in those behaviors of like, oh, wait a minute, I'm doing this. I need to,
Yeah.
I need to not do this. And why am I doing this? And what's coming up? And really just digging in and asking those questions to yourself.
Yeah.
Of, you know, what is this about? Like,
Yes. Exactly. That bringing in that awareness and acknowledgement of
yes.
what the expectation is genuinely attached to. The other layer to that too, that was, I think, really helpful for both of you was speaking your truth then at that point. And we've talked a lot about that so far on this podcast of like what speaking your truth is and how to do it. But really speaking your truth is taking ownership of whatever it is that you've uncovered as to why you have that expectation. And in that taking ownership, you're no longer placing blame on the other person of like, well, I expected you to do this and you didn't do it. And there's all that blame of it. But when you know, like, I was placing this expectation on you because I felt, whatever, unworthy or not good enough. And I was trying to get validation from you through fulfilling this expectation, and actually being able to verbalize that, like, one is very hard, but two, super freeing of the expectation. And that leads to healing for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay.
And I will say it was hard. Like it was the whole process. It's hard. Like I love you, but there were times when I was like, really,
I really hate you.
I hated you, but oh man, like I just, but I will say I did what you told me to do, even when I didn't want to do it. And it was so worth it.
Yeah. That's so great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happens often. It's okay. Gary, what about yourself?
Well, two things. One, I guess. The golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Yeah.
Followed by the golden key. And I love the golden key because you create your own circumstance. And I know we're not supposed to judge people and stuff, but so many times you could look at somebody going, you're going to get exactly what you're calling for, you're asking for, or whatever.
Yeah.
And so if you can relate that to yourself, okay, what do I want the outcome of this to be?
Mm-hmm.
And then strive towards that.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So how is the marriage today? Like, what are you guys walking through, and how are you walking through that now?
Well, our marriage is pretty quiet. I mean, we had a great holidays. It seems like January just flew by, and now here February's gone, and I don't even know what happened there. And so our world really contaminates our relationships sometimes.
Yeah.
And I wished we could, when we closed the door, it stayed outside of our house, but that's not the case. At the end of the day, I respect Gina's feelings and her thoughts and her, feelings towards things.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the same thing. Just because these are Gina's feelings does not mean they have to be mine.
Right. Nor does it mean that you have to fight again. Like, it's that allowing someone else to have their own feelings. And I don't know if you guys remember when we talked about this, it had to do with acceptance and accepting the other person for who they are, but more importantly, accepting them for who they're not. Because those are actually very different things. It's easy to accept stuff like, oh, I accept them for, who they are. But it's the struggle is about accepting who they are not and who they will never be. And that's what I hear in what you're sharing too there, Gary, is like accepting each other for who you're not.
Mm-hmm.
And that also goes to the expectations too, of like, then it releases the expectations that they have to be a certain way or do certain things, and you guys can just enjoy life.
Exactly.
Yeah. I wanted to ask that question because I think often in the coaching world and even in the therapy, just self-help world, period, there's this projection that, oh, when you do this coaching, like, life is going to be incredible and you're never going to have anything hard happen again, or you're never going to face any challenges again. And that's not what the 180 is about. It's not a manifestation tool to like make your life incredible and only like what you want in your life to happen. And everything's going to change because of that. It does. Like it creates change, but in a way that is so, and maybe you guys could speak more to this because you've experienced it, but like it's natural. It's not this forced thing. And just because you've done the work and are doing the work doesn't mean everything's cherry and roses on your path of life. There's still challenges, but
But you
what's
have tools now.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I was going to say, like, what's the difference now though?
Well, for sure is having the tools and looking at yourself in the mirror, you know, and saying, okay, let's look at my baggage before we start looking at other people's baggage. You know,
Yeah.
I'll dissect my baggage, and then when I get all my socks folded, well, then we can talk about yours. But my socks
Yes.
are folded.
Okay, good. Gina, what about yourself?
Well, I think it's like you said earlier, it's the healing.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you've had like a lifetime, right? Like, you know, I'm going to be 60 on Saturday. So,
Stop.
yeah.
You do not look 60, Gina.
No,
Yeah.
right?
I'm going to be
No.
60 on Saturday. And so it's been
You have a hot wife, Gary.
but it's been, so, you know, there's a lot, you know, and I think about very early on when I started counseling, like early 20s, and there was a lot of shame around it, like from my family. And that has kind of been a theme throughout my whole life, childhood, you know, my whole adult life is that shame. And then, you know, having gone through the experiences of marriage and divorce, it just heaps that on there. So for me, it's like you said earlier, it's ownership of that. I mean, a year ago, I wouldn't have wanted to come on here and say I've been married 4 times. I wouldn't have wanted to do that. I say a lot of times, like, I think my story's dumb. I don't like it. But at the same time, it's beautiful because it's gotten me to where I am. And again, we have these amazing little grandbabies that are just like, they make everything worth it. And so, and to continue to do the work to show our kids, you know, that it can be done. And then again, to be able to show up for these grandbabies in a completely different way.
Yeah. Like almost like you couldn't show up that way for your kids. You're showing up that way for them now, but for the grandkids, for them you to show up the way you are now. That's awesome.
Yes.
I love hearing that. One of the things, I'm sure you remember this, Gina, but it totally stood out for me because it was like, wow, that's a powerful declaration. Before we started into the couples coaching, you were like, this is going to be like my 4th divorce then, like, cause I'm done. Like, this is not working. And you were just at that point of that can't happen.
Right.
That's where it's going. And that can't happen.
Right.
And yay, it didn't happen. Oh, you guys. So anything else you would want to like share or, you know, just have couples married, like, you know, long-term looking at near divorce or going through counseling or the seeking some kind of help? Like what is there anything you would want to share with them?
I would just say, like, if you don't do the healing, right? And I just don't see that in the counseling as much. It, you know, there are some counselors I think that they have tools they can give you and things like that. But if you're not doing the healing on your own, then you're going to continue in that 360 cycle no matter who you're in a relationship with.
Yeah.
And you're going to attract that into your life. So I think that, you know, stopping and doing the work and stopping the cycle will start then the healing, not only of yourself, but of your relationship. And it takes a long time.
Yeah.
it takes a long time, and you just have to keep putting in the work.
So true. Yeah. Anything for you, Gary?
Well, yeah. I think one of the things that the kids heard a lot when we was raising them when they was young,
Yeah.
that it was good enough for me. This is how I was raised, and it wasn't good enough for me.
Yeah.
And I wished I would have known that a long, long time ago. But digging deep down in, and I mean, finding your core beliefs and stuff like this, all this time that you thought, well, was good enough. No, it wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the big things of being uncovered is no, it wasn't good enough. So
awesome. Yeah. And you have every power and capability to change that now and
right.
have. Yeah.
Right.
It starts with a decision.
Yes.
Deciding to heal. Right.
Right. I mean, even the golden key, it starts with a decision.
It starts with a decision. Yeah. All the pillars of the 180 like start with a decision, because you can't do anything without that solid decision happening first.
Right.
Oh, you guys, thank you so much. You're just, again, a gift and a pleasure. And thank you for being open and willing to open up your marriage to share, the hard things, the good things, the things you're still walking through. And I know how much like our mess is our message, like there's so much that we could share with each other. But when we put on our masks and like, oh yeah, everything's great, or we've got an awesome marriage, it's like, okay, what really goes on behind closed doors? And if we could just like remove the masks and share vulnerably, so much life would be so much better and so much more easeful. And that's what I really want to do on this podcast, is having people like yourselves who have done the work or who are willing to do the work and open up and share, because that absolutely impacts other people to do the same.
Yes.
Well, the testimony.
Yeah, exactly. The testimony. You got it. All right. Thank you so much. And thank you to you listeners for tuning in to another episode of Decide to Heal. We'll see you next time.
We go higher to the sky, reaching out.